Hey, friends, as usual, caught with my knickers around my ankles, somewhat unprepared. We landed in Sedona last night. I say we. The we is my tour team. We're on this Revelations tour across the United States, as some of you know. Got off to a great start about 10 days ago. I can't remember exactly. Conscious Life Expo in Los Angeles with a tremendous turnout. And then we did Santa Cruz, and Foster Gamble came in for that. And then we did Joshua Tree. Oh Christ! Then we did Utah, and Dr. David Martin flew in just in time to jump on stage and do an armchair conversation with me, which we're going to be covering today in Lazarus Symposium. So that is one of the segments today. I think it's number 2, and it's not to be missed. I'm pretty sure it's a bonus segment. But thrilled for me to have been able to catch up with Dave Martin after many years. We bump into each other from time to time on the circuit, but we've never had the time to sit down and reconnect in 17 years since we started working together in the proverbial basement. And the kind of stuff we were doing at that time was very, very radical, very dangerous. And this was the first time we got together since that time, since 2009, 2010, and had a catch up and decide to speak about that stuff. And also in the broader context of where we're at psycho-civilizationally. And of course, David Martin, as many of you know, is one of the greatest voices in the world in helping to contextualize that and ground the pandemonium of the status quo into digestible, psycho-emotional, psycho-spiritual, digestible pieces. And what a thrill to be able to catch up with him on that score. So arrived in Sedona last night and doing the Sedona show imminently. Christy will throw up a graphic, please, because I can't do 3 things at once. But there is a Sedona show coming up. Do we have a gig there? I don't think we do, actually. I might have to upload that. But in any event, after Sedona will be Las Vegas, baby. And looking forward to that. On my tours, speaking tours, I do not charge money because I am envisioning a world beyond time and money. So it's free entry. We carry the burden of these tours ourselves. We rely on people to help promote. I've been banned from most theaters. In fact, I can safely say all theaters that we've tried to book in the United States. And I mean all theaters we've tried to book in from Hollywood across to Florida. Once they find out it's me, for some strange reason, they phone and cancel the bookings, the theaters. So persona non grata for some inexplicable reason. I just don't think my voice is that radical any longer, but apparently others do. That said, it may well change in the coming days. And I rather suspect with the slaying of the Leviathan, with that broadsword of St. Michael's being wielded by the Musk, Kennedy, Trump, Patel, and Gabbard thrust, I think we're seeing the slaying of a Leviathan. I will say this, and as a caveat, we are moving and transitioning from a Saturnian age, from the satanic, and we are moving from the satanic, in a sense, to the Luciferic. So this is a very important subject matter, I believe. I think that these huge, and there's a vast distinction between the satanic and the Luciferian. So from blood ritualism, blood cult, blood economy, war, disease, poverty, the desecration of God's majesty, and the desecration or attempted desecration of humankind. That's what war, disease, and poverty and misery and the trial of separation hitherto in this great galactic sleep from which we are exiting has all been about. So a satanic, Saturnian, foundationally premised in blood rights and scarcity, blood economy, and so on. Moving from that, and that of course is why and where all of that stuff of the human trafficking and child sex abuse, pedophilia, ritual satanic abuse, the ugly, ugly stuff in the basement, That's where it has been of huge consequence and importance that we, the greater we, but certainly in my case, have made a life signature of going into those spaces, investigating them, understanding them, trying to understand them, transmute the horror into revelation. And indeed, revelation now is upon us. But the satanic to the Luciferic, from the satanic to the Luciferic means, in a sense, a monumental upshift, but it's still false light. So this notion that the taking down of the IRS and the Vatican and the takedown of the pedophiles and Jeffrey Epstein's island and all of that, this is great, but these are optics, friends. This is optics, okay? And this is not the cavalry. This is not hallelujah. Yet it is terrific, and no one more thrilled and excited than me, waking up every day, immediately grabbing my phone like some fucking Japanese, student, and immediately going into the TikTok routine because I'm so fascinated by the next move of the Trump administration as we take down this kind of wokest, Fabianist, liberal intellectual mayhem that really was on the cusp of destroying planetary culture. Seriously, it was so dangerous, so dangerous. And seeing how the magnificent disruptor Trump and the phalanx, the host of angels that are engendered behind this kind of energy form as a disruption, and with Musk and Kennedy and the rest, seeing that come in and doing what it's doing, more executive orders to foundationally break the spine of government and reset this idea of government. More has happened in the last 3 weeks than in the last 30 years. And that's exponential. That is extraordinary. And we've only just begun. But I urge, and this is my message in my preamble to Lazarus, I urge all of us to be very cautious that we don't now be pulled into the dragnet of a new dawn that is a calculated, crafted, false light matrix that feels a whole lot better than the satanic that we've just emerged from, but is still a dragnet, is still a matrix. In fact, it's even more dangerous in a sense because it lulls us into a meta sense of security at the collective level of the gestalt. There is a tremendous danger now that in the coming few years we become artificialized and transhumanized, without even knowing it, because we are being, in a sense, groomed into a new cultural and civilizational sense of safety, which isn't real in as much as it's still matrix, false light. That's the Luciferic I'm talking about. So I think personally, I believe it's going to last for 7 years. I genuinely believe the emancipation is going to hit early 2032, round about there. The next 5 to 7 years, certainly the next 4 years, is going to be fun, a lot of fun for those of us who are on the right side of the line and see the takedown of blood economy, this is the takedown of war economy. But be cautious, friends, that's all, because we have not departed the matrix. We've just moved into the next octave of how it plays out. And it can be very, very seductive. That said, I want to bring in my favorite man in the world, your favorite archaeocosmologist, and somebody whom we've really only just begun the conversation with, despite the fact that I think we dragged him squawking into the Lazarus arena like a gladiatorial mission, throwing him as Christians to the lions, to entertain us with these fearsome, bold, and stunning ideas that have been helping so many people in the Lazarus community to step back from any notions, contextual frameworks that we believe we understand about our lives, about reality, about history, about time. I give you, friends, the one, the only, Dave Emery.
Hello, I was just looking around to see who you're talking about. Thank you very much for that that wonderful preamble. It was
Dave,
just
I have to say, I want to get your take on the status quo in answer essentially to the comments that I was just making. More because I've lost the notes on my computer, my production notes, and I have to find them and look as though I'm not looking to find them. So I'm going to give you the mic for a minute, or a couple of minutes. Just what are your thoughts on status quo in reference to what I was saying, how I was framing it?
Well, yeah, let me just go with this, because I thought what you said was absolutely pivotal and very illuminating. It really is, and it was a warning, a sort of a celestial warning, really, to not assume that everything is going to be 100% perfect. And I think you're quite right. I haven't heard anyone say the shift from satanic to Luciferian, but I immediately picked up on that. It's sort of like we've been frogs in the boiling pot, and suddenly the pot, a new pot has arrived, and we've been tipped into that with warm water. So here we are, definitely in a different environment, and a different spiritual environment, where we could easily think, as you suggested, we could easily think that this is it. We've arrived. We're safe, secure, and sovereign, and it's all going to be fine. But I take on board everything you said there, Sacha. That's such an astute series of comments you made there, that we are still responsible for our own selves, that we are still responsible for our own celestial expansion, and we should not ever allow anybody else ever again to take over that responsibility and try to do it for us. So I
Indeed.
agree.
And to me, it seems, Dave, that's precisely where this next age. I'm not going to call it an age, because I believe it's going to be very short lived. I think we're in for a very short period of transition and transmutation into transcendence. I don't think it's going to take I know enough about fractal mathematics and about MSET mathematics to understand the math and the geometry of collapsing time, how we've departed it, and how things are going to more or less play forward. Although playing forward is the wrong vernacular. It's not playing forward at all. It's playing inward. It's an immanent upshift, an immanent shift. It's not an upshift, actually. It's not forward or up. And this is part of what we're going to have to change about how we view and contextualize and frame reality. It is no longer moving from A to B along a linear path. There is no tomorrow. There's no horizon in front of us. There's no forward motion or inertia. It is all immanent. So it's a torus. It's moving inwardly, and it's moving that way. And you and I become the atom seed of that counterpoint motion now, which is an imminent thrust. The great awakening is this inner awakening, this great revelation. Friends, Dave, as you know, is the thought-provoking explorer of consciousness, seeker of truth, and a passionate advocate for sovereign self-awareness, as am I, as are all of you. With decades of experience navigating the intricate web of reality fields, he challenges conventional narratives and invites us to question everything that we've been told, everything that we've learned. And his very unique and grounded and noble perspective, I have to say that's why I love Dave. I've gone the distance with Dave and will continue to, as long as he'll have me irritating him, because he carries grace. And that's the same quality that emerges through the immanence I was just referencing. And the grace is an ever unfolding aspect. It's a quantum, hyperdimensional aspect. He is not capable of judging. I don't judge either. And when you move beyond judgment and identification into the immanent, you are always the student. You are more a student than a teacher, and yet your words matter. The resonance that issues through you, precisely because you are in that state of grace, has grounding. It has resonance, and it, through the empathic wave again, which activates in the Christed heart, what you say, what you do, what you be, beams forth and becomes the agent of change. And Dave is very much one of those archetypes in this world, a man who must and will be recognized thus. His unique perspective does blend ancient wisdom, modern insight, and a very deep understanding of the interplay between AI, holographic projections, and human consciousness. And that's what we're going to be riffing on right now. So Dave's going to help us sift through the illusions that we may reclaim, so that we may reclaim our divinity, the divine mantle, and navigate the chaos of an ever-shifting world on ever-shifting sands. What say you, Dave? AI transhumanism, is it the true existential threat that some would have us believe, or is it simply an ephemeral piece that we needfully move through in order to further clarify the lens of our own supernature, our own divinity?
Well, it's not ephemeral when you're in the holographic realms, when you're in the external domains, what we might call down here or up there or wherever it may be. We are locked into like a theatre show. And as I've often said to many people, it can't be ephemeral because if when you go into a theatre to watch a play or watch a film, you have to do something which is very, very critical. And this applies to every single one of us. Otherwise, we can't live here. We can't experience in these holographic realms. What is that one thing you have to do when you step into the darkened studio or the darkened cinema hall? You have to suspend your disbelief. You know that the actors are not really actors. They're just performing a part. You've seen them before in other films or other plays. So you know that what they're doing out there is simply a demonstration, a play, a performance. But if you don't suspend your disbelief, if you don't actually begin to believe totally in what they are doing, you can't enter into the action. You can't become a part of the whole scene. You cannot become one with the action on the stage or on the film screen. So we suspend our disbelief. And although it might sound trite, that is exactly what we do in the holographic realms. As soon as we are born, we suspend our disbelief and we believe that everything that is around us is totally and absolutely real. We have to do that. Otherwise, we will not stay in this place. We will simply not learn anything. We will not experience and expand our consciousness, which is really what it's all about. So what about artificial intelligence then? Well, remember that in the holographic realms, they are based upon frequency, which is the electrotonal oscillation and vibration of electromagnetism. And that is what creates the visions that we see, that we create ourselves through our own mind and through the minds of others. It projects onto a screen, which we call a radial body screen, which we all have. And that is how we manage to navigate and manifest everything that we think we see and hear and feel in our world. So can AI impact that? Well, of course it can. If you can fabricate an artificial mechanism for projecting, transmitting, and receiving energies in the form of light and sound, then you are able to impact the light and sound images that individual beings create, because we are projection machines, effectively. So AI can be very, very impactful. So what is the key between good AI and what we might call bad AI in the middle of our suspended disbelief? Well, that comes down to two very celestial, we might call them divine, aspects of experience, of consciousness. And they are intent and expression. And in the higher realms, it is known as God's intention, and it is known as God's expression. And if you want to break it down even further, what happens is sound is God's intention and light is God's expression. These are broken down even more into electric and into magnetism. So magnetism is God's intention and electricity is God's expression. One goes outwards into the universe, the cosmos, as thrust, that's the electric, and the other one is pulls back and nurtures and enhances, and that's the magnetic. And some people call that the alignment of masculine and feminine. So what's the big deal about intent and expression with regard to AI? Well, here comes the answer. Those who create AI have an intent. They also have an expression. They intend that something should happen and that the AI they create should express it. So what's the significance, the really big significance of intention and expression? Well, intention comes first. Sound always comes first before light. So intention is critical. It's pivotal. So if I am a very, very clever scientist somewhere in the Far East, shall we say, as an example, and I create an AI under authority of somebody who pays me to create it, they instruct me as to what the intention must be. We want to create AI to be harmonizing and helping humanity, or we want to create AI so that we control and survey humanity. Those are two separate intentions. So that's where the critical aspect of AI comes. Who created it and what was their intent? Because whatever their intent was will be magnified by the expression of what they create. So I hope you see what I'm getting at here, Sacha.
Very good.
AI is fine. It can be very, very beneficial, and indeed it is beneficial, but it all depends upon the intent of the creator, which is the same with you and I, Sacha. How do we intend to create our lives? What is our intention?
I think you made that point. So what does it mean to be a sovereign being in a world dominated by external projections and influences? And how do emotional energies like fear and desire get weaponized to manipulate collective consciousness? I think this is interesting to discuss because this is really the mechanics of how we have been co-opted or invited into subjugation, invited into surrendering our sovereignty. It's how, religion and culture emerged. It's how government emerged. And now we're awakening from that bad dream. But in so doing, it really would help us to understand how our individual, very personal, psycho-emotional body is the very thing that gets harvested. That's the thing that leads to us being plasma harvested. And if we're able to still, to quiet the storm and find that equilibrium on that indivisible line between emotionality and intellectuality, where the mind does not lead us, the heart does not lead us. Instead, we situate ourselves perfectly on that indivisible line. That is the Christed aspect of being disidentified from the chaos out there, which is how we reclaim truly that sovereign flame. But speak a little bit about that, about what does it mean to be a sovereign being in a world dominated by constant flux of external and extraneous forces. How easiest can we make that journey to the still point, to the stillness?
Well, that's a very profound question. It's the one that if we can answer it, we answer all the challenges of the human condition throughout our history, galactic as well. Let me take you back to the moment when you, Sacha, and all of us are in our pure consciousness state. We're just about to downstep aspects of our radiation consciousness, our pure situation, our pure state. And we were going to downstep part of ourselves into the lower realms where we are now, the holographic worlds of illusion. And we would be given all the information in these marbled, wonderful halls of gaseous light. And we'd be told everything that we needed to do to downstep. And we would look at each other and we'd say, well, how hard can it be down there? I mean, seriously, look who we are. We have all this amazing, pure consciousness. It can't be that difficult, can it? But there was one thing that we were told, and that is, by the way, you could end up forgetting who you are. And what we're talking about is identity. Everything is to do with identity. So to answer your question now, here in the holographic realms, where we are sovereign beings, we are pure consciousness, this is who we are. But we have forgotten who we are. So in the process of forgetting who we are, we get separated from our pure consciousness state. We get separated from all of the other states of being, like multidimensional positions and galactic and universal horizons. We forget all about that. And in that process, we are left with what? We are left with our physical self. And of course, when we're left with our physical self, then all sorts of astonishing things can happen to us. And this is where fear, as you mentioned, gets weaponized and used against us. And when we experience fear in our own physical self, then we step away even further from the truth of who we truly are. We lose sight of our sovereign self. We lose sight of our God self. And when that happens, all aspects of experience are in play, and we can lose ourselves almost forever, Sacha. And
Very good.
that's where we've been.
Indeed. So I'm interested in a conundrum here, which is gravity. Okay. In a sense, being in your center and being grounded, being earthed, and being fully sovereign, in that sense, is you in with a center of gravity. That's a fair comment. But at the same time, fear is gravity as well. Fear is gravity. It pulls you down and anchors you into a vector, which is the counterpoint of sovereignty. So speak about that conundrum there. Gravity being the atom seed of fear, as well as being the atom seed of sovereign nature.
Wow. Okay, well, we better go for a quick flight then. This is going to take us somewhere. The fact is that, and any physicist listening to this will turn the program off right now. Gravity isn't natural either. Time isn't. It's a construct for the lower dimensional realms. Gravity is an artificially created, massively powerful construct whereby worlds are held in positions. Often, well, most of the time, they're held in unnatural positions, aberrated positions. And that is what happens down on the planetary realms. So when I say about gravity, it is a mechanism which is used to secure even galaxies in their particular place so they can't move. That applies to suns and applies to planets. Now, not everywhere, because it's not a natural force. It seems as though it's a natural force in our 3D galactic realm, but it actually isn't. But all our sciences and all our mathematics are based around the fact that gravity definitely seems and appears to be real. But in fact, really what you're pointing to is the fact that fear pulls us down. It is a much more powerful effect than gravity. Effectively, we are able to be light and maneuver around. We originally were able to levitate perfectly acceptably. And in fact, that's how, for example, the pyramids were built. They were built through levitationary processes, whereby you can just push things around of great weight. And we were supposed to be able to just fly and move around, etc. That is our natural state. So where does the part of fear come into this? Because you're quite right. Fear is a very grounding effect. It pulls you right down into the nether realms where you feel you cannot ever escape. And it takes an inordinate amount of celestial energy to be able to step out of that and become who you truly are. So I think that really what we're looking at here is the rise of the sovereign spirit. Again, once more, and the question is always, how do you do that? I mean, when you're confronted in a physical form with great fear, as we all have been there, how do you bypass that? How do you sidestep it? How do you dissolve it right in our own faces? That is an issue which is absolutely critical, and it's aligned with knowing who we are, our own sovereign identity. And the first thing that we must be able to say in the face of fear is no, is to decry it. I know that this is sounding trite because it is so difficult, because we have been exposed to fear for a million years, lifetime after lifetime. And this becomes a very serious challenge for us all. But I can tell you that we are all collectively beginning to rise above it and to learn how to manifest alternative from fear.
Very good, very good. And I agree. It is it's the most difficult thing, and yet it's the most simple thing at the same time. Is it not? I mean, when you get into it, just turning off that thing, just not going there, not situating yourself in fear, not allowing yourself to get subsumed or sucked into that vortex. I mean, we've all been there a million times in the course of our lives, and I know that I'm foundationally a coward, and it's my instinct to run like hell from anything and everything, and to avoid confrontation, and so on. And yet I know that through a sequence of events that happened to me, especially when I started my activism work. It wasn't activism work; it's not kind of peace diplomacy work. Blah blah blah. In 1999, 2000, 2001, those 3 years were so formative for me. With such ghastly things that happened to me in the first really 5 years that I was doing what I was doing, that I recognized that if I did give in to that natural reflex of fear and of fight and flight, that my entire incarnation, my life would amount to absolutely nothing. Nothing. It would be less than irrelevant if I couldn't somehow work past that. And so what I did was kind of engendered what I call a form of psychopathy. I became a kind of, not a psychopath, but I became someone who literally just by force of sheer will made myself go into the night, go into that valley of death. And I know that for me, Dave, and I'm using myself as an illustration because what you said is so important, and I want to illustrate it to contextualize it. I know that when I went into the Great Pyramid to spend the night on my own, that was for me a turning point, an absolute turning point. Number one, don't like heights. And heights is not about getting to the top of the pyramid. Heights can also be when you're going into the Great Pyramid and you're looking down into that shaft, those stairs going down. It is very, very steep and it's endless. I don't like confined spaces. That's about the most confined of spaces you're going to find on the face of the earth, with 1 trillion tons of granite above you, the biggest weight load of mass above you, and you are bacterium in the bowels of darkness. In those days in 1999, there was one long fluorescent bulb in the gallery, and that was it. So you had this kind of vague glow from the moment you came into the pyramid. Had to make your way with a little torch, and there was nothing was lit. So putting myself into that compression point and then staying the distance and in the chamber and then waiting for dawn to then, get through this rite of passage so I could flee out. And that was the thing. I did try and flee at dawn. I thought, I've done it. I've done it. I held myself, and then I made quickly to get my way out of the king's chamber all the way up. And that was when I got assailed by these, I don't know, kind of sentinel spirit forms that in the gallery prevented me from moving. And they fell out of the walls like these specters, smoky specters, these huge, all powerful, archonic lords of time. That's what it looked like. And I was apprehended. I couldn't run. It was literally a, what do you call it when it's, you have to get past a hurdle to get through it. It was that trial was set before me. And only when I relinquished the fear that was utterly devouring me, seizing me, and I let it go, it didn't belong to me, and I had to throw it down and let it go. Then they retracted back into the granite walls, and this obstacle course was clear. And then I was able to, in a measured way, walk through that gallery and then find my way to the exit, go up the shaft into the light. And that for me was such an incredible rite of passage And I know that Dr. Paul Brunton and others who had earlier accounts of their own experience in the Great Pyramid when they also did that rite of passage. But for me, it was all about relinquishing the idea of fear because it doesn't belong to me. And once I did that, then the journey becomes easier. Then you find you can pitch yourself into any situation in life fearlessly. Having said that, um, I don't like heights. I'm still terrified of heights. Can't stand them. You would, for instance, never see me in a hot air balloon. That for me is just like hell. The notion of being on a hot air balloon is for me literally hell on earth. I swear to God, I would rather die. So yeah, what gives? I still have fear, but I put myself into fearlessness in order to navigate life. Can you share any such anecdote? Because I, for one, would love to know more about your status, how you arrived at fearlessness.
Well, I think your experience there was so eloquently explained and very powerfully transmitted. Wow, that was just something I can imagine being there. So the thing about fear is that, and I can give you some idea of something similar. The thing about fear is the ultimate ground zero of fear is to do with death. And death is to do with the final disappearance of all that you are, your soul essence. And deep within us, we have encrypted our pure consciousness of self, which is in fact eternal. But when we enter into the lower realms, such as this one here, which we've been in for so many millions of years now, when we enter into here and we come face to face with fears, and we all do, as you've just explained, then the end game of fear is that if you don't respond in certain ways, etc., to this fear, fight or flight or whatever it may be, you will then die, and that would mean that you are gone forever. You will never ever be in existence again. That is the end game for you. And when you realize that your sovereign self is eternal, you can start doing what you did in the pyramid. You can let go. You can say things like no, or alternatively, I'm internal. I don't know who you're talking to or who you are talking to me about the fear, etc. I relinquish this fear because it is not real. I am a sovereign, eternal being, and I exist always. I cannot speak for you, fear. You are speaking only for yourself, and I am free and eternal. And certainly, I learned this in a couple of experiences that I had with regard to being extremely fearful, and those were to do with what we might call creepy crawlies. When I found myself, long story, in a pit with centipedes, and I'm pretty certain there was lots of snakes in there, and that was my own particular terror. I was extremely frightened, and suddenly I got, if I got angry, but in a very assertive and, shall we say, divine sense. And I said, no, I'm not buying this. I'm eternal. I live forever. I'm capable of all things. And all of you here who are endeavoring to scare me and frighten me, you are all part of my conscious creation. And I relinquish you. I let you go because I am eternal and I am not here. And it might seem trite, it might seem stupid, but for me, that absolutely worked. And that was like when you were faced by those archonic beings who prevented you from going anywhere. I was being prevented by my own resurrected fears in the form of snakes and creepy crawlies, etc., of which I was terrified. And I think really it's when we stand up and we realize that we are eternal and nothing can stop us from re-entering that celestial place, which we never really left,
Very good.
then we're home and dry.
Well, I now know how to prank you, so I'm greatly looking forward to having an 11-inch tarantula spider. It'd probably be made out of rubber, but expect to see that under your pillow when you when we travel together, hopefully later this year, and speak about that.
Oh, okay.
Let's talk about historical and cosmic contexts. What is the significance of historical events like the Babylon massacre or the Sumerian invasions, for instance, in shaping current reality? Let's look at that. Let's look at those huge epochal event horizons that did really cause a cascade into the current day, and how those trauma patterns and what have you at the fractal level remain firmly embedded in our quintessence until we address the meta and a meta understanding of context.
Well, of course, the things really went belly up around about 12,000 years ago, and we entered what we're told is the Stone Age, conveniently forgetting all the wonderful civilizations that existed before. But of course, after the Great Flood, which was a real flood, a lot of the real estate was cleared, literally. And although it wasn't one of the greatest floods ever in our history, it was enough in our civilized world at the time, which was Egypt. It was enough to reset civilization in a very big way. And it also meant that we had no more access to free energy, healing, interdimensional transport, the effect of getting rid of gravity so you could build things. We were basically reduced to being just physical specimens. Now, into this particular experience, around about 9,000 years ago, there were the Sumerian invasions. No, they weren't 3,000 or 4,000 years ago, like we've been told. And all sorts of wonderful things happened around about there, and the pyramids were built, etc. That's not true. These invasions happened 9,000 years ago, and these basically terrorized humanity. And of course, you can terrorize humanity and make them very fearful, but that won't shift anything to do with their DNA. It will just make their behaviors readjusted. But if you want to affect their DNA, then you have to do something really spectacular. And in fact, many things were done in those days. Around about 4000 BC, there was the Babylon massacre. It was a Babylon massacre, but it was really heralded by the stories later of the Tower of Babel, whereby humans wanted to speak to God, so they built a tower to get close to him. And God got very annoyed with their temerity, and he destroyed the tower, and he made them all talk in different tongues. Okay, well, the real story behind that is that there was a war going on between two of the multidimensional collectives. One was the Jehovian Anunnaki, and the other was the Thoth Enki Luciferian Anunnaki. There was also another group in there called the Marduk Enlil Anunnaki, and they were all at war. And one of them decided that they'd nuke the whole place, but not with nuclear weapons, with sound pulse radionic weapons, which would destroy Babylon completely, and of course get rid of all of the human hybrids, the Leviathan forces of that particular multidimensional collective. So they unleashed this weapon. Now, what this weapon did actually, because Earth is a bioelectric organism, it is a bioelectric organism, which means that every single life form on Earth is also bioelectric, as well as spiritual, of course. But the bioelectric connections between Earth and the life field were separated, not quite severed, but separated. And as a result of that, in our DNA, our language patterns were distorted hopelessly. So that happened in 4000 BC, around about then. And that was when we started to have to learn new languages. And curiously enough, all of our languages around the world began at around about the same time. Of course, our experts don't really, figure this one out. But in fact, it was the Babylon massacre, through the destruction of the language patterns in our DNA, our electrotonal transmission and receiving mechanisms in the DNA, which meant that we had to learn new languages and we had to learn new ways of interacting with people. This was a pivotal moment in history, which is much bigger than people ever think, because what that did is that separated us once more, even more. If we weren't already separated by the flood and by a Stone Age existence where we were just physical beings, we were certainly separated then from all that went before, because we couldn't communicate as we used to. And so as a result of that, it was easier for the multidimensional collectives who really had been running the show from the fourth and fifth dimensional fields. It was easier for them to absolutely corral us, make us do what we wanted to do, and of course, to make us fearful. It separated us from who we truly were. Our identity was absolutely significantly damaged in those times. So that is one of the particular pivotal moments in our history, which did have a deep effect upon our psyche.
Very good. So taking it further, how do these ancient manipulations of reality fields continue to influence modern politics, for instance, geopolitics or culture or spiritual movements, religions, and so on?
Well, most of them these days are to do with identity, and they have been for quite some time. And we all know now the dynamics behind controlling our own identity, our own awareness of self, which has never been wanted by the multidimensionals or by their human hybrid elites who run the show on Earth for them, or did until quite recently. And that's why we see all these government elites and the European Economic Forum and all the corporate heads, the big time elites. Their primary concern now is to make sure that we are absolutely and utterly controlled. If it can't be through money, then it has to be through identity. And that's why we have surveillance. That's why we have passports. That's why we have all of the things that we have, which corral us and reduce our freedoms, because the one thing they do not want is for us to step into our true celestial power. Once we do that, it's just like when you were in the pyramid, when you stepped into your true celestial power, Sacha, everything changes. In fact, worlds and galaxies shift once that happens. And so the last, couple of many thousands of years has been to dumb down our identity, dumb down our ability to know who we are, and to make sure that we never step into the true power that we really have. And the true power we really have is based on love. Absolute love.
So let's just quickly, whilst we're on this subject of love, arguably the one thing that unifies everything and everyone on Earth is this endless kind of revolution around the notion of love. Not that it's something that's understood terribly well, but let's discuss love and empathy. Why the mechanics of it I'm talking about. Why is it that love is the thing, the condition, the premise, the living principle, the emanation that unlocks all ills, that remedies all ills? Let's talk about the mechanics. Again, I'll go back, as I've done 100 times in Lazarus, and just reference the empathic waveform that issues off the actualized human heart as being the singularity, the thing that is the most powerful force in this universe, is the angelic human. The actualized human is, by definition, the angelic human, and the actualized human, the angelic human, by definition and distinction, is the Christed heart, the one that is completely in service at the quantum level, becomes the thing that traverses the entire universe. So the empathic wave form that issues out of a actualized angelic human heart is the field, the force that moves across and traverses the entire universe, therefore and thereby remedying all ills. Speak a little bit about the importance, the mechanics of the thing called love, whether we understand it or not. Mothers that smother their children and turn them into psychopaths are ostensibly loving their child. So what is love? Love is an utter perversity in many contexts, if not most contexts, because it's a false light glue that binds false light relationships, that engenders all the wrong stuff in our path toward emancipation. So speak about the true mechanics of this thing called love.
Wow, you've just eloquently explained so much about it anyway, Sacha. Respect for that. The thing is that if you can climb on the wagon which says that we are pure consciousness, we are the radiation output of pure consciousness, which means that we are, and you quoted it actually yourself, we are the living presence. We are the living presence of the living essence. And we are essences of absolute love. And it is in a sort of a radiation sequence. That's the really only thing I can say, which is, of course, a wave and a particle, as we talk about sometimes in our physics down here. It is a real demonstrable thing, the living essence, the vapor flows of living essence, the rays of love. And these are outpictured from, like you just said, the angelic human heart in waves and particles, and they are transmitted and they are received naturally and wholesomely in every way, and they encompass a wide variety of different aspects of that absolute love. They're all connected. For example, compassion. Compassion is a very, very powerful aspect of that love. What we've had down here, of course, in our lower domains, is we have had, like you've just said, the distortions presented. Now, why would there be distortions? How could you possibly have a distortion of the living presence, which is the living essence of absolute love? How can it be distorted? Well, it was distorted through things like we've just been talking about, through fear, etc., so that we would have a completely inorganic view of what love really is. And as you can see, for many years now, our conception of love has been manipulated and has been publicized as something that actually most of the time it simply is not. And so we get the distortions through our distorted view of love. We get the distortions of our behavioral responses to it. For example, you said that the mother who smothers her child, and he then has a distorted view of what love is, and he either tries to avoid that in his life, or he seeks it in his life, not because he wants love, but because he wants to have the remembrance of how he was treated, or to forget how he was treated when he was younger. And so that life moves on, creating and creating and creating according to a distorted view of the absolute love of pure consciousness. That is one of the things that we've had to navigate down here. And it has been an absolutely huge thing to try and come to terms with. And I don't have any doubt in saying at all that I personally have had some challenges in all of that too.
Very good. Someone's just put a comment here, which I think is very, very worthy. Mary Marlowe, love this comment and thank you for it. Love is the river of energy that flows from the heart of divine architect. I love that. And there's a couple of other bits here. How do I get back to the live? Someone else said something here, which I really like. It says, Mary also said, it either swallows you or you repel it. Someone else said something very powerful here. Love is creative energy and preservation energy. Yes. Love, boom, boom, boom. I'm so sorry. I'm trying to find. Love is, true love is interaction, and false light love is transaction. I think that's very interesting. And that comes from Megan Grief. True love is interaction, and false light love is transaction. Really like that. What do you think of that?
I think that they're both brilliant. Yeah. And the interaction, the transaction, it's so supreme, that is. And if I can just add to that, if I may, in the very higher realms, when we have two beings wanting to align their love, etc., in a physical sense, it is the alignment of their particle base. So they merge their particle base completely, so that all the particles and all the waves come together as one, and so that two individual separated beings become one in actuality, shining and radiating the alignment of all of their particles in that demonstration of absolute love.
Very good. Love it. Very good. So let's move to the current day. We're beginning to wind this fabulous conversation down. Let's move to the current day. What role do figures like Trump, Musk? I just heard, incidentally, I confess I was skiving whilst you were speaking momentarily because a flash came up on my phone saying that saying that Trump had just sent Zelensky out of the White House, told him his car is waiting at the entrance of the West Wing. He can leave. He was dismissed, and he can come back when he's ready to discuss peace. I mean, I think that's exactly what if that's true, I'm a happy man today, because I was waiting for someone to bitch slap that turgid little poofter. Have you seen him dancing? Sorry to bring that into this noble conversation. Have you seen the film footage of Zelensky when he was a performer, a dancer, and doing belly dances in his
No.
spandex costumes? Not a joke. Not a joke. Absolutely real. I had my tour last year. I had clips of Zelensky doing his these things surface, as they did with Barack Obama and his homosexual memberships to the gay saunas in Chicago with Rahm Emanuel back in the day. That all surfaced a few years ago. Anyway, I digress. I'm trying to bring the conversation. I'm trying to bring the noble conversation, Dave, back to the squalid enterprise of contemporaneous politics and where we're at today, navigating the cosmic game, reclaiming divinity. What role do figures like Trump, Musk, and others play in the larger game of awakening and control, whether they know it or not themselves?
Well, that's a great question. And of course, it is fascinating to be able to watch what's going on. Not that you can believe everything you see on MSM, of course, but certainly everything is up for grabs now. And let me just say that every single elite politician of the very highest levels I'm talking about here, and elite everything that run this showboat of the world, each one of them are members of a Leviathan force. And these are the human hybrids who were created specifically to run the Earth show, the theater show of Earth, on behalf of the multidimensional collectives who wanted to control the Earth resources and the Earth's bioelectric frequency field. They would do it through the human hybrids. Now, of course, back in the day, because of the situation, the historical situation, things were not global. But now we've got global issues. And I can tell you that many of these human hybrid elites are representing the energies, not necessarily the multidimensional collectives, because a lot of them have gone now, but they're representing the energies. They've been left with the energy floating around inside their own systems, and they don't honestly know what to do with it or how to respond to it. That's why there is so much confusion. And then into the confusion comes some alternative being, such as Trump, etc., and Musk, who actually manages to align with what the freedom seekers want. The people who are awakening, they start to talk what we would call common sense, and that appeals to people who are awakening. But all of the other elites, they are locked into their energetic protocols, which they have been entrained to live with, and has come through their bloodlines in their families. Most of them, they're so connected with that. That's particularly so for the royals. They don't know which way to turn. So if you wanted to know who some of them were, for example, the UK government at the moment, the Marxist government, is Luciferian. A lot of the Congress in America are or have been draconian, Zeta draconian. And that's why they slipped into Satanism, etc. A lot of people also involved with in the Middle East, for example, are draconian in their energetic
Oh yeah.
responses. And you can see that everywhere. That includes Ukraine. That does not include the Ukrainian people. I'm talking about elites. I have this conversation with people and they get very uptight about this. I'm talking about the elite elites. I'm not
Yes.
talking about the people here.
Which is why the seal of Moloch is the sigil of Moloch is the seal of modern Ukraine on the flag. It's insane. It's right there. Nothing to do with the pulse of the common people. Everything to do with the controlling interests of those common people. So well said.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so consequently, what you've got is all of these characters, these elite characters, pouncing around, excuse my phrase here, but pouncing around on the world stage, on the red carpets, trying to convince everybody that they are right and trying to convince themselves that they are right at the end of their own tether. And they know it. They know
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
The thing about Trump is, I mean, Trump could be regarded as a Jehovah's, as he is by many people. Some people regard him as from Sirius B, a sixth dimensional energy come down, etc. Take your pick, whatever you believe. The real fact is that his energetic input into the frequency fields of Earth, this bioelectric field, has had a destabilizing effect on all of these other elites. And they are in awe of him, actually, because he is truly a dynamic personality who is changing the whole pattern of geopolitics worldwide.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
will continue.
Humanizing it literally with a hammer, just shattering it into a million pieces. That is what is so, for me, so energizing and so beautiful about what's happening right now. And I just did check. He has been remonstrating with Zelensky there. You can see and sending him out of the White House. That is historic, truly historic. Never happened before on the world stage, politically, diplomatically. Now, of course, the idiot woke liberal intellectual enclave, which populates most of the cities in the emancipated Western world. Most of those wokest liberal intellectual morons will be absolutely frothing at the mouth about this. This is a shock. This is an abomination. How dare the leader of the free world turn away the yeah, exactly. That's the point. Trump is ending the deception, the great lie of politics and of diplomacy. And it's about fucking time. So I personally am thrilled today. I'm going to go and celebrate after Lazarus Symposium at what I've just seen. That, to me, I've been waiting for 25 years for. Someone either in the United Nations on the floor of the General Assembly or somebody in the Security Council or somebody in the Oval Office to actually break the fucking bone on their knee and reset it. This is very exciting. And today, what's happening with the alignment of the seven planets, it's a very, very important day and it's very, very auspicious. In any event, Dave, I want to just discuss briefly. In fact, I'm going to put you on the spot here. Last year, we were supposed to do this cruise in the Mediterranean. I'm very much hoping you are available between the 1st and the 12th of October this year. Can you, sir, check your calendar right now on air in front of 1,000 people in this room and many others looking on the other platforms? I want to know.
Well, I will have to confess to you, I don't have a diary and I don't have a checklist, and I don't even have a shopping list. So all I can say is that if you wanted me for that time, there's nobody has put anything into my diary because I don't have one.
All right, done deal, friends. I'm going to be adding Dave to this graphic because I needed to speak to him to get his permission today. I've been on the road for the last couple of weeks since my producer, Susan Shumsky, of this New Earth Horizon seminar at sea, God bless Susan. She's incredible. Scott McKay is joining us. Dave Emery is going to be joining us. The graphic will be put out later today on social media. I just need to make sure that he can that first the 12th doesn't conflict with grandchildren's birthdays or anything, but he's just basically said it. He's going to be joining us. Margot Anand, my beloved friend, who is the great Tantra master, great spiritual and consciousness teacher, and has been thus for half a century, is joining Patriot Street Fighter legend Scott McKay and myself and Dave Emery on this New Earth Horizon seminar at sea. It's going to be 10 to 12 days. What first of the 12 days? There you go. Greece, Egypt, Cyprus, and Turkey. We're going to be disembarking the ship on multiple ports in order to go and see these ancient sites and sacred sites. And it's going to be an incredible 12 days, which I'm very, very excited about. So as you can imagine, with Dave coming at it from the archaeo-cosmological and galactic historian perspective, helping to couch the fiction of time, which he and I were intending to do last year. We'll carry that forward into this year. Margot Anand bringing in the Tantra piece. Not that we're going to be licking strawberry jam off each other's nipples. It's not that kind of Tantra. I mean, I can't speak for you, Dave, but I won't be going there. But Tantra in the context of it being the a very pure tradition of emancipating us through reconnecting to our central sun. And that's got everything to do with sensuality, sexuality. But in this case, it's an intellectual discussion and narrative. But Margot Anand is an incredible consciousness teacher, has emancipated so many people around the world. And Scott McKay, my beloved friend, who is the real hard man of the patriot movement, Christian patriots, farmers, veterans, my people. The reason why I'm in America right now is to touch with that community amongst the New Earth and Lazarus community. But Scott McKay is also, to those who listen to his incredibly intuitive broadcasts, he's very keyed into quantum consciousness and quantum sciences. That's his great passion. It always was. And I don't know what's going on with these flash graphics. Excuse me, people. But this is the thing. This is the time, the date to get Dave Emery, myself, Margot Anand, and Scott McKay on. We've got one other friend who might be joining us, another icon. In fact, there's two other icons, big, who are wanting to change their calendars to also come on this. It's going to be 12 days nonstop, seeing the most incredible places in the world, in the Mediterranean, and then long quantum conversations in a small theater on the ship. We'll be presiding over with the attendees to our seminar at sea. Friends, do yourselves a favor. Go to www.newearthcruise.com and join us on a sojourn through the ancient mysteries to the wisdom of ages. I think that squarely puts paid to our plans for later this year. Dave, I want to thank you for this conversation. Loved it as ever. And to the audience, first, let me bid you adieu before I continue to speak over you, Dave. Thank you for joining us today, and I'll speak to you on the phone later in the day.
Okay, thank you for inviting me. I loved every bit, but thank you very much.